All right, guys. Hey, how's it going? I'm Ross O'Loughlin here, and I'm lucky enough to be here today with Mike Monday, who's going to be talking to us about how to break through as a music producer in 2019. And I'm really excited because Mike has been helping aspiring music producers break through for a number of years now. And I know, Mike, you've also been working behind the scenes with some of the big name music producers out there on how to kind of build their businesses and make more music. So I'm excited to have you here.
Great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So Mike, the reason I'm so excited today to talk to you is because like I'm kind of familiar enough with your history, right? And like you have a long kind of distinguished career as a music producer, but then you ended up leaving the game, just a few years back now. But from the conversations we've been having, like you've like come back swinging. You stopped producing music, and now you've kind of come back again because you said you've seen this kind of opportunity. So you want to just kind of walk us through the progression of how you kind of fell out of love with it and have come back to it?
Yeah, so I made music like full time as my career from the time I left university, where I studied music all the way through to I did 17 years. I did the whole DJ producer thing before EDM happened, and traveled all over the world, and that was my career. Released over 300 tracks, remixes, etc., etc. Some of the remixes I did are people like U2, and so I got a fair amount of success. I wouldn't say I got all the way to the A list, but I was well known in my corner of the music industry. And then in when was it? It was around 2011, 2010. I stopped. I emigrated to Australia, had a young child, and I just did not want to do it anymore. And I started a coaching business helping other people do it around the creativity side of things. So the start of it, it was about how to finish music, how to actually finish music, the psychological side of finishing music, because I saw loads of stuff about how to compress bass lines and that kind of technical stuff, and there wasn't anything about the one thing that I had the biggest problem with in that 17 years. So that was what my coaching business became. Very quickly brought on a client, a sort of top client who is still with me to this day, which is Claude Von Stroke. So I was coaching him one-to-one at the same time as helping aspiring music producers through various different online programs and courses. And that's what I've been doing for the last 7 years, 8 years or something, I can't remember, and exactly. And just this year, started making music again like an absolute crazy person as a result of
Yeah.
some of the stuff that I've discovered, particularly in the last few years. I mean, I think everything before it has been leading to this moment, but it's like I'm some kind of mad professor just spitting out music and I can't help it. At the same time as still building this coaching business and helping the people just as I have been. So that's what's been happening. And that's why I'm so excited right now to share how it's happened and what you can do to do it as well.
Yeah. And I want to get back into why you're so excited to come back. But before we get to that, I know like you've explained to me about like why you ended up leaving music production, right? Because I know a lot of producers who are trying to break through would be like, why would you ever want to stop? But like circa 2000, 2007, 2008, 2009 was around when you started to kind of step away from it, maybe 2010. And I think that was when everyone was kind of waking up to realize like the good old days are gone, right? So like what was it about how you were making music and the music industry that caused you to realize like I got to step away from this and I'm going to go into the coaching space?
Right. So first of all, the first thing to bear in mind is I started my musical life, I mean, before this, but essentially at the age of 7 when I started playing the piano. And music was my life. I've been a musician from the age of 7. That's how I've kind of identified myself. So that was a long time to be making music, and I kind of did it more than anything else. It was what I did. I had a choral scholarship at Queen's College, Oxford, to do music. I had a music scholarship at a school. I was in the National Youth Orchestra playing the double bassoon of all instruments. It was like played in every kind of band. So I have been doing music all of my life. And then there was 17 years doing it full time in the music business as well. And when I started releasing my first records, which I did with Andy Cato from Groove Armada, we released a record and immediately it did really well. It was on Radio 1. Sasha was playing it. It was just, it went absolutely nuts almost immediately. And this was back in the days, the golden age, although in other ways I think a golden age is now as well. But anyway, it was a different golden age where you could release a record and sell tens of thousands, like literally a piece of vinyl, and sell tens of thousands of copies. And that was my main source of income for the start of my career. And I was in the music industry as that way of a musician being able to make a living basically just died completely, and everything shifted. And what happened was, the way it was before was that touring promoted your recordings. And during my time in the music industry, that 17 years, that flipped. So that recordings started to promote your touring. And there's an inherent problem with that model, which still exists now for the vast majority of music producers. And that is that the thing that you are doing, right, that you have to do to promote the thing that you are selling, your touring. So the thing you are selling is the touring. The thing that you have to do to promote it is stopped by the thing you're selling. It's very, very, very hard to continue making consistently quality music, enough music, while you're traveling all over the world like a nutter. With no sleep, going across time zones, partying, all of the rest of it. It's incredibly difficult to do that. So those two things are actually in opposition. That wasn't the same before. It was almost like the touring was something that you didn't have to do all the time because there were recordings which could be sold over and over again. Touring requires you to be present in a place at a particular moment in time. That being the main source of income for the vast majority of people, certainly if you're not at the very, very top, it causes all kinds of issues. And that is basically what happened to me. And back when I stopped, I just had a child, my first child. I've now got 4 little boys, but this was my first child. And that I had to provide for this little person. And having to provide for that little person by being away from that little person all the time was a source of tension. And also in the studio, because my touring was my main source of income, not the only one, but my main source of income, that meant, because I was DJing, that meant that there was a tension in what I wanted to do creatively in the studio with what I felt I had to do in order to keep the touring up, because people expected a certain type of music, and I'm the kind of creator who needs to be constantly challenging myself, constantly progressing forward, constantly trying new things, pushing my sound forward. And I felt like it was no longer my sound. I was having to essentially, this was, I mean, looking back on it now, I probably wasn't I wasn't taking the best approach to this, the best psychological approach to it, but I was feeling that I was having to do something in the studio that I didn't actually want to do. It felt like I was making music as a past mic, not as mic as it is now. So what ended up happening was the music was confused as well. And if you listen to my second album, Songs Without Words, you'll hear the confusion. There are some good bits on there, but it's all over the shop. That's because I was trying to juggle all of this thing that I felt I had to do, which was created by this business model, which is that recordings promote your touring.
So, we talked a little bit about how when you stepped away from music, and you kind of alluded to it, with a couple of things you've said, like what you were really doing was stepping away from, music production and DJing to figure out like how would someone in your position who wants to make music their life, or who had made music their life, how would they make it work in this new era, right? Because like things really started to change in the 90s and 2000s, when like the value of the recordings just started to evaporate basically. So why, what did you discover about how to make it work?
Well, just bear in mind that when I left making music, I didn't actually think I was going to come back to it. I mean, I did say never to anyone who asked, but I said at this point I have zero desire to make music. So I wasn't doing all of this in order to come back to it. Right? I was actually doing all of this because I'd found something which I love to do just as much as making music. It uses a different part of the brain. So, building a business and also helping other people and coaching other people and talking to people, like wonderful people, about their creative processes and their business, and helping fantastic artists like Claude Von Stroke, and the amazing things he's done with a Dirty Bird. It lights me up just as much as making a sick a groove or whatever. So that's important to understand. I didn't do it thinking, right, I need to go and figure this out and for myself. It was like I was doing it because I'd found something else that lit me up. But in the course of doing this, what I've found is that the internet, while destroying the old music industry, has created a bunch of opportunities, and they are about a direct relationship with fans. There was an article I read back in 2008 or 9 by Kevin Kelly, and it's a very famous one called 1000 True Fans. And if I can, so if I chart what where we have got to now, and where like my approach, certainly in relation to the connecting with fans part, it all kind of stems from that article, 1000 True Fans. And it's really funny because if you look underneath, there's all these comments and people saying, when it first came out, because I read it almost immediately after it first came out, people saying, oh, just, is this going to work? Right. Mm-hmm. And now the comments are, does this still work? And I can confirm.
Just to recap, what is the concept of the 1000 True Fans?
So the concept with 1000 True Fans is that with the internet, what that has fundamentally changed is that you don't need to have 1 million people. What all you need to do is attract those people. It's about the long tail. What you need to attract those people who, as I said, are delighted to hear from you, because you can offer them things of value to them. I'm not saying you just sell them crap that they don't want, because they won't buy it, but of things of value to them. If you can, not identify, but attract those people who love what you do so much they will literally, they'll buy anything, then you need less people in order to make a decent income. And that has been my experience in building this coaching business. And as I noticed this, as I got better at engaging with people, as I understood that audience better, I realized, well, that's actually, there is not really any difference between what I'm doing here. I mean, there is a difference, obviously. One is coaching and the other is music. But there is no difference in terms of the actual moving parts between the two businesses. There is content of value, right? One is entertainment, the other is help, right? There is content of value, and then there is the relationship with those fans you build with that content, and then there is the ongoing kind of system which you use to engage with those fans. And in kind of realizing this, I sort of started to understand where the music industry and why much of the music industry is in so much pain. It's because the music industry still, as a whole, I'm not saying everybody in it, but as a whole, generally speaking, is looking at the situation as if we're still in a physical release situation. Mm-hmm. But we're not anymore. We're in a situation where, for the majority of stuff, obviously people still do release vinyl and there are cassettes, but largely speaking, music is up in the cloud, and you can reach you could reach anyone. That is a fundamentally different situation when you have to when you had a physical product that needed to be on a shelf and ordered by every individual shop, because that involved there having to be a date upon which this thing hit. Mm-hmm. Right? You had to make a splash. It had to be a bomb, because what that created was a situation where the shops would rebuy your thing, reorder, so then you'd make more, and also display your thing more because it was selling well. So you had to have all of your ducks in a row, PR ducks in a row, to hit all at the same time. So everyone's like, oh, have you heard the new right? That was the way it had to be. Now, things are fundamentally different now. In
Mm-hmm.
order to create success, you can build a relationship with the same people over and over again, get in touch with them constantly, have a constant stream of content through which you build an ongoing relationship, which means that you can get eventually. It does take. I mean, it's not easy. Don't get me wrong, but eventually you get those 1,000 people, and the number is 1,000 is just a number. You know what I mean? But
Mm-hmm.
a number of people who are happy to hear from you, who are delighted to hear from you, who want a closer relationship with you, and bear in mind, you are delivering value to them. You're not selling them something they don't want, right? So you're delivering
Mm-hmm.
value to them. So you're actually enriching their lives, right? So it's a win-win
Mm-hmm.
for everyone. And so you can develop that relationship. Now, that's not to say. So this is what I call, instead of the bomb, it's what I call the magnet. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're attracting people over time. You're increasingly magnetizing yourself. Now, not many people in the music industry understand this distinction between the two. They're looking at things just purely from the bomb, and if the bomb doesn't go off, they're in trouble. Right? And a
Mm-hmm.
bomb requires an enormous amount of resources. A magnet requires resources, but spread over a long period of time. And the great thing about creating a magnet situation is that yes, it's a slow burner. Yes, it increases over time. But when you do have the resources to let off a bomb, to drop a bomb, you have everything in place to capture the splash, if you
Mm-hmm.
like, to, to,
Mm-hmm.
to then re-engage with those people who are attracted by the bomb. So it's not that you don't do any of that bomb-like stuff. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that you create the magnet system, which then allows you to do something with that bomb. And it's what I've been doing with my top clients. That this kind of shift. I mean, it's not an either or. It is an and.
Mm-hmm.
But particularly for an unknown music producer who wants to make it, who wants to break through, instead of, like, if you are trying to build a bomb that is going to compete with the majors or with the big artists, you're going to have a really big problem because you're competing with resources. You're competing with people who have their ducks in a row, who know how to build a bomb and explode it, right? And you've got your little, I don't know, your little water balloon, and you're chucking it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just going like that. So what you want to do is build a magnet system
Mm-hmm.
so that you can then, build a bomb later on.
Gotcha. So we covered a lot there, just so I can kind of reiterate, so make sure I was following along. Like what you're saying is that with the old way of doing it, like marketing your music was very PR based, and you had to there had to be a lot of coordinated effort to even get attention on your stuff, and you
All on
had
the
to get
same day, all on
all the
in the
same
same
day.
time. Everything need to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and from that point of view, like that's what would create the splash that might get you the sales. That would mean that you probably need to get a lot of sales to make any money. And what you're saying is there's this concept by this guy Kevin Kelly called 1,000 True Fans.
Yeah.
And if I understood correctly, it's my understanding of it is that if you want to make a good living as a creative or anything, you don't need a massive following. You just need to find 1,000 people that are like true fans of yours, who will be willing to support you and buy the stuff that you've released, not just crap, but put out and reward you financially for the value that you're
Creating for
creating. If you
them.
get 1,000 of those, you can earn like a really good living. I think he was talking like, is it like a 500,000 or a million or whatever the number was? If you look at the article,
I can't remember the exact figures. I mean, numbers are numbers. I think I think the principle that we need to take from this, rather than the specifics in
yeah,
this case, because he didn't know, he'd not tested this, but is that you need a lot less people than you would think if
mm,
you can create a sufficiently high value in their lives for
yes,
them to give you
money,
value, enough
yeah.
value in return. Yeah,
And
in
so,
the
and
form
so
of money.
what you're saying is that the old model was PR based through distribution. So basically, you had to make a load of people to make a load of noise for you all over the place just to move units. And you were saying we're kind of in this new era now, where because of the internet, you can technically get your music out, easier and further than ever, and that there's a huge opportunity for new aspiring producers to basically attract those 1,000 true fans to them and build a direct relationship with them that kind of removes all the middlemen of managers and distribution
Yes.
chains and all that from the relationship. Is that kind of what we're getting at?
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially about, you know, the go big or go home idea is not the only way. I mean, there is still that, and that does still work, but it requires things that most aspiring producers don't have, unless they're incredibly lucky, right? And I don't want people to be playing the lottery in order to succeed. I want them to be playing the lottery at the same time as doing something that, if they don't win the lottery, will get them to where they want to go.
Gotcha.
And which also makes it more likely that they will win the lottery at the same time. So
yeah, because we've talked about it, and if a lot of these semi big names had that relationship with their customers and the ability to communicate with them, you know, how many more opportunities would arise from that? And if you have, as you said, like the bomb, if there is an explosion of media attention on you, like are you able to capture that and reuse it? Because a lot of times, like, you hear about people who get their moment in the spotlight, right? And then they have those 15 minutes of fame where everyone's talking about them, and then they're quickly forgotten because they haven't the ability to recreate that conversation with those
people. So it actually makes the actual bomb more valuable as well. Because what you're doing, if you to use the analogy even further, if you're creating a splash with the bomb, what we're doing with the magnet model is creating the buckets to capture that splash. So we are basically getting permission to re-engage with those people who have been, you know, pushed in your direction by the bomb.
Yeah, awesome. Sweet. So, Mike, I believe you have something that you're lining up for anyone that's looking to, like, make it as an aspiring, or make it as a music producer in 2019. Yeah, that's next year, right?
Yeah.
Or this year. What's the story there?
Yeah, so I'm going to jump on a call with a bunch of people, and we're going to brainstorm some ideas for your own particular situation of how you're going to break through as a music producer in 2019. It's going to basically follow a format of, we'll actually have a conversation directly with each other. It'll be an audio call. You'll jump on. We'll be a group of people. You'll be able to put your hand up, and you can ask me a question, and then we can have a conversation, and we can really kind of identify what your situation is and what your biggest opportunities in each of these, you know, in any of these areas are. I mean, we're not going to be able to talk about every single one of them for everyone, but maybe I can have a conversation with you, and we can figure out, okay, so what is your next step? Now, what ideas are there? What opportunities are there for you to really make 2019 a year to remember for your music career?
Awesome. Sweet. So yeah, we'll stick the link down below for people to be able to access that, so they can just click that and they'll be able to get all the details.
Yeah, click that, get the details. You put your email address in so that I can, you know, remind you and tell you when it's coming up, and we'll jump on the call and we'll have a conversation.
Awesome. Nice one, Mike. Cheers for this. I'm looking forward to the next chat that we're going to have.
No worries. Speak soon.